If you've spent enough time in the backcountry, you have definitely become frustrated with your water purification system more than once. It's either failed on you, you couldn't decide which one to buy, the one you wanted was too expensive, the one that worked the best was too heavy. Now, while there is almost an infinite number of choices out there, I want to start a whole series on water purification, and I thought I should use the two systems that I've used most frequently over the past few years. That is the Steripen Ultra and the Katadyn BeFree, specifically with the 1 liter double-walled bladder. Now, what both these systems have in common is that they're relatively lightweight, inexpensive, and easy to use. I have over 5 years experience with the Steripen, and I've used the BeFree pretty religiously over the last year. And they represent two completely different philosophies on water treatment: purification versus filtration. Today, we're going to break down the science, the failures, and the reality of using both these systems in the field. So before we get into how these work, let's look at the weight and the cost. So the Steripen weighs 133 grams and costs approximately 135 USD. The BeFree clocks in at 104 grams and only costs about 60 bucks. And that's for the double-walled version. If you buy the single-walled version, you can save an additional $10. So the BeFree uses a 0.1 micron hollow fiber membrane, and it will physically trap bacteria and protozoa like Giardia and Cryptosporidium. One additional quick note about the BeFree is it actually comes with an additional charcoal filter that you can put in after the hollow fiber membrane. It definitely slows down the throughput of the filter, but it dramatically improves the flavor. And while we're on that topic, you will definitely get a nicer flavored water with this system because it's physically purifying the water and taking out the physical objects, whereas the Steripen doesn't do that. Crucial point here, it does not remove viruses. Now, I will say for North American hunting, this is not an issue, but if you do find yourself overseas, you cannot rely on the hollow fiber membrane style purification to get rid of viruses. And that's where the Steripen comes in. So what the Steripen does is it uses UV light, and it actually scrambles the DNA of the living organisms in the water so they can't reproduce. So you are physically drinking the bacteria, the protozoa, and the viruses, but they lack the ability to reproduce in your system, so you don't need to worry about them. And yes, to reiterate, the Steripen does address viruses, so it is safe for use overseas in places where a virus might be a concern. So the single point of most of my frustration with the BeFree does actually come back to the filtering itself. So what you will find is after a few days of using this thing in the backcountry, especially if you're in any kind of like sludgy water or taking out a wallows, or you're in just like murky kind of swampy stuff, spoogey, and you're kind of pressing down on moss to get little pockets of water, the filter does clog up fairly quickly. Now, it doesn't clog to the point where it becomes unusable, but as you will see later on, it gets really difficult to squeeze, and you kind of get this insane forearm pump. But it does, especially when you're going through 3, 4, 5 liters of water a day, or even more if there's 2 of you using the same filter. It can become quite annoying to try and squeeze that much water through this thing on a daily basis once that flow through rate slows down. So before we hit the next section, I got a quick announcement I want to share with you guys. I'm so confident that I've crafted the best performing sock for backcountry hunters that's available on the market today, that I've put together the most insane giveaway I have ever done. And this is not one of those giveaways that you see from everybody else where they went and convinced a bunch of other companies to give stuff. This is me giving directly to you. So for every $5 you spend at forgedinthebackcountry.com, and that even includes the new camo version of the forged base boxers that I just released, you will get one entry to win a custom guided hunt from Mindful Hunter Outfitting. And I am gonna work with the winner to build the hunt of your dreams. We could go after black bear or mule deer in British Columbia. We could go chase mule deer with our bows in Alberta, or we could go to my leases in Mexico and hunt Coues deer in the rut with a rifle. I am extremely passionate about delivering phenomenal gear to backcountry hunters. And I truly believe that with the Forged Base Series socks, I have brought something unique and new to the market. I feel very strongly that you're gonna love this product, and I cannot wait to share the hunt of a lifetime with one lucky winner. Good luck. I will say there are instructions on the side of the bottle that says you can just take this out and swish it in the creek and it will clean it up. The bottom line is that does very little to affect what is actually clogging this hollow fiber membrane. Now, when you get back home, you can soak it in distilled water or a very, very diluted bleach. I have a feeling vinegar would also work as well. And that does seem to get it back closer to its original state. So while you can do mild field maintenance, it doesn't really do a whole lot. And one of the final benefits of the BeFree is that you're actually getting an additional 1 liter of water storage. So when you're down at a creek, if you've got your Nalgene, you can fill it up with dirty water, fill your Nalgene up, fill it back up with dirty water, stick it in your pack, you've got your Nalgene, you drink out of it, and then later on, if you're up in the Alpine and you don't have any more water, you always have that reserve 1 liter of dirty water in your BeFree. And one last note that was pretty frustrating, I dumped the extra $10 on the double layer, and on this last hunt that I was on with a couple of clients, we discovered there was a small pinprick hole right in the bottom of this. So as you're squeezing the bejesus out of this thing, trying to get this trickle of water out the front, I looked down and the side of my pant was getting all wet because this thing was spraying back up at me. So there are definitely physical limitations to the bladder itself as well. Now, that does not mean that the Steripen is free from bugs or failures either. This is the Steripen Ultra. Before this, I had the Adventurer Opti. Now, the Adventurer Opti, I forget exactly what batteries it ran on, but it was weird batteries. It was like those 1032s. They look like a AA battery, but they're like half the length. And it took 2 of those. And I did have some issues running out of batteries. Now, what I realized near the end of having that device is that 2 of those batteries are only good for 50 liters of water. And if you go on a 10-day trip, you can easily filter 50 liters or more worth of water. So I think when I thought my device was dying, I think it was actually just running out of batteries. But as long as I had spare batteries, that was never an issue. Now, the main reason that I switched to the Ultra is that it's USB chargeable. And since I've moved to this one, I've never had to worry about any battery issues. It's never died on me. I have heard of some complaints of a Steripen just dying on somebody. Whether I bring the Steripen or the BeFree, I always keep some aqua tabs in my possibles pouch just in case. I mean, even if you lose one of these devices, you definitely want a backup water purification device of some kind in the backcountry. And even though those aqua tabs taste like garbage and they make all your, vessels and bladders taste like garbage, they will work for a temporary fix if anything goes down. The other thing you want to keep a note with the Steripen is that you're going to need some type of wide mouth container. A wide mouth 1 liter Nalgene does work best. And what I will also do is I buy that Human Gear cap. So it's a small cap that goes on top of the big cap of the Nalgene, which accomplishes 2 things. Number 1, makes it way easier to drink from. As we all know, drinking out of a wide mouth Nalgene, you end up splashing water all over yourself. But number 2, it keeps your lips off of the part of the Nalgene that touched the unpurified water. Because you take off the big lid, put in the dirty water, purify it, put the big lid back on, and then you only drink through the little lid, which never touched the unpurified water. So as I was mentioning, this is that Human Gear cap. So it's super easy to replace your regular Nalgene lid, fill it up like there, dirty water only contacts that lip, and then when you go to drink, you only have to drink out of this one, and the dirty water never touches that. So let's walk through purifying a single liter with the Steripen. Now I want to make one note, because I think this is why a lot of people think the Steripen is glitchy or does weird things. So there's these 2 metal probes on the front of the Steripen. If While purifying, at any point those probes leave the water, the Steripen will start over. It will flash an error code and it's going to stop the countdown and you're going to have to start all over again. So I'm going to show you exactly what happens if one of these probes leaves the water. The old Adventure or Opti wouldn't give you this error message. It would just start flashing red so you didn't know why. But watch what happens the moment these probes leave the water. And I think some people see that and think the Steripen is broken. It's not. It's just warning you that it stopped purifying the water. And for 1 liter of water, you need to run this thing for 90 seconds. That's the other reason I like the Ultra, is that it physically shows a counter on the screen. So yeah, dead simple. Bury both those probes. Hit the start button, and so you can see it now. They tell you that you're supposed to mildly stir. I don't really know how important that is, but you can see the countdown. It's at 75 seconds now. And you literally just stir this thing until the countdown is over. I will say one benefit to stirring with a little bit of energy is that hypothetically, if you had a bacteria or a protozoa that was like blocked by a physical object and the UV light couldn't reach it, it wouldn't get sterilized. And I think that's really the purpose behind the stirring, is that to get the water moving around so that if any of those, little organisms are clinging onto the back of a little piece of dirt, it all gets exposed to the UV light. All right, 2 seconds left. There we go. Gives you a nice big happy face. And then you're good to go. That's all you got to do. 1 liter of perfectly clean water. All right, so we purified a liter with the Steripen. Now let's purify one with the BeFree. We can kind of compare times and whatnot. Again, the only real issue with the BeFree is that it does tend to slow down pretty quickly if you're in water that has heavy particulate. If you've got glacial silt, you're hooped. And then it's just the actual elbow grease of how difficult this thing is to squeeze. All right, there you go. 1 liter purified with the BeFree.
They're pretty close in time.
I think they are.
Yeah.
One is just like
Effort.
and the other one's like tinka, 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 tinka,
Yeah.
tinka. Yeah.
I almost prefer the Katadyn because I can feel that it's
Yeah.
in a weird way.
There's
I'm
a
like, okay, I'm
tactile,
making progress.
yeah, it's like shoveling snow. There's an
Exactly.
instant gratification to it.
Exactly.
Now, something else to note with both of these options is cold weather performance. And while you may have battery issues in the cold weather with the Steripen, what concerns me more is any type of physical filter in cold weather. Because if it's really cold and you get water in that hollow fiber membrane and you don't get it out and it freezes, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. You can pour some warm water on it, but that's only going to be a temporary fix. So anytime I do like a late January, early February goat hunt, the Steripen is always my device of choice because I get concerned with any physical filter in sub-zero temperatures. Now, the one final note I will make in favor of the BeFree is that if you were going super ultralight and you were really starting to count ounces, you do save almost 1.5 ounces with the BeFree. And like I mentioned, you get that extra full liter of storage on you. So if you made sure your filter was nice and clean before the trip, I think you could make a strong argument to shave a little weight, save a little money, and have the BeFree with you. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, the convenience of the Steripen is just too hard to beat for me. There are some drawbacks to the Steripen that I have already mentioned that the BeFree does address. I did find myself in some really gnarly places last year, and I was so glad that I had the BeFree because I could actually get out the physical particulate. But actually, there's an issue that neither one of these filters addresses, and that is a realistic way to kind of obtain and purify water from seeps. Sometimes you'll just have a thin layer of water on top of moss, or sometimes you'll be up in the alpine and they'll literally be like the smallest trickle coming out. Now, because all you really have is the ability of this kind of mouth to put it, either submerge it or put it into running water, you can't really fill it up with a really small volume source like that. And the same holds true for your Nalgene. And so what I'm actually going to be looking at in the next series of purification is devices that give us the ability to physically purify water, but also give us the ability to access seeps and other kind of small flow sources of water in the backcountry that neither of these devices are able to access. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Looking forward to the rest of the series.